All right, so there are 12 loaves of bread. They are baked the same way, they are set in the same order every single week for hundreds of years. There's no loaf. No loaf got to be the interesting one, okay? None of them got extra attention for turning out better than the others. Then a few verses later, one man says something out loud that he can't take back, and it becomes the only case in this entire book. Okay, two things are happening in this chapter that look like they have nothing to do with each other, but by the end of today, you'll know why God cared this much about something staying exactly the same each week, and why one sentence said out loud was enough to stop an entire camp. So today we're in a chapter that does something a little strange. It gives us a rule about keeping a light burning, and then a rule about bread that gets replaced every single week and then taken out of nowhere. And then out of nowhere, right? A real fight breaks out in the middle of camp over something somebody said. So these three things, they don't necessarily look connected at all, but they're in the same chapter for a very specific reason. By the end of today, I'm hoping that you'll see what a lamp staying lit and bread getting replaced and a man losing control of his words all have in common. So, good morning as you all are coming in. Happy Monday. It's good to see you. As you are arriving in and you're staying, good morning. I'd love to see who's in the chat with us today. I want you to think about the last time somebody checked on you before anything was actually wrong, okay? Not after you told them something was off, or not after this really bad week showed up. Just checked on you because it was just a normal Monday, right? I think for some of us, we can probably count on one hand the people who've done that. I think most weeks, nobody is asking about you until you say so. Do you guys ever feel like that? If that's you, today is going to be very relevant for when you're experiencing those times. So I want to know, it's Monday. What are you guys looking forward to this week? I'm getting my hair done tomorrow, so I won't be on. I'm looking forward to finally getting it done. I'm sick of hiding some of these gray hairs that are peeking out. What are you all looking forward to this week? So when nothing's going wrong, I think for some of us, some part of us assumes nothing's being noticed either. Not by the people around you, and sometimes maybe not by God. We're going to talk about that today. So if this is your first time in this room, I welcome you. Good morning. My name is Vanessa. I do this Bible study every morning. I call it my coffee and calling. It's just a daily Bible study where I go verse by verse through scripture. I take it in plain language. You don't have to have any Bible background. We're walking through Leviticus. Today we're in chapter 24. So I asked you guys a question initially. What are you guys looking forward to this week? Anything? Anything exciting you have planned? It's Monday. Maybe it's a very Monday for all of you. You've had a rough start. I don't know. Today was good. It was good for me. So as you guys kind of answer that, here's what today is actually about, okay? I think for some of us, we start believing that we're the only ones keeping track of when something's going wrong with us. An ordinary week doesn't register sometimes with God the way that a crisis does. This is really what we're going to be in today. It's really a study about being forgotten in the in-between spaces, not the emergencies. Those regular weeks where nothing happens worth mentioning. So there's a chapter in Leviticus, and it was written a long time before we got to today, a long time before today. That was exactly like this one. And it was written for exactly that kind of week where you're not in crisis. It's just an ordinary week. Okay, so good morning to those of you that are hopping on. It's good to see each and every one of you. As you guys are kind of arriving, if you are new to these studies, I go section by section. We are in Leviticus 24. If you've never opened up a Bible before today, you are in exactly the right place. You found out today you're doing a one-day turnaround to Canada and back, Auntie. Goodness. I'm sure you're helping, right? Oh, that's a lot. That is a lot. Sending you prayers. for your mental peace, your physical strength. You are such a beautiful blessing to so many. So as you guys are hopping in, if you've never been on this Bible study before, please know that you can drop your questions and your thoughts in the comments as we go. I read through every single one of them, and I want you to know this too. We don't block any comments unless we can tell the direction of where they're going. Okay? We've been doing these long enough, me and my moderators, to kind of know when people are just trying to start issues. So please don't feel offended or feel that you can't ask a genuine question here. I read every single one of them. Even if I don't respond right then and there in the moment, I can see it. So just know that I will do my best to come back to it. So if you are catching this on the replay, because we do have the replays available for each and every one of you, if you want to join later, or if you need to leave at any point, just know that that's an option. At the bottom left of your screen, there's a gold icon. But if any of you are watching this on the replay, just know that everything still applies to you. You can still ask your questions. You can still share any wisdom that you have. Okay? So, we are going to be in Leviticus 24. Now, as you guys are kind of popping in, just know that we generally start these studies off in prayer. So, I invite you guys to put your prayer request in the chat. It could just be one word. I know that you guys are really good about knowing that's coming, so a lot of you have already started to put them in the chat. Go ahead and continue to do that. And if you have already done it, I did want to invite you to a question that I asked. I'm just curious what you're looking forward to this week. What are you looking forward to this week? It could be something simple, exciting, one word. You could say family dinner. You could say phone call, whatever that is. I'm just curious how your week is looking. And we're going to go ahead and invite Holy Spirit into the room and start this study here in just a second. Okay. Heavenly Father, I thank you for today. Thank you for another beautiful start to our week. Please give us strength as we navigate the challenges that we may face. Please give us joy throughout the week. Please help us to find little moments where we feel like we can shut off our minds, that we can just lean into rest with you, that we can be still long enough to just hear what you're trying to speak to us about. Father, please help us to settle the distractions so that we can come to this word with open ears. Please give us eyes to see the things that you're trying to highlight for us. As we navigate Leviticus 24, please highlight things that maybe we haven't learned before. Please help us to see it in a way that aligns with your will. I pray that as we read through today, that today's word helps each and every person on this live remember that they are not forgotten by you. That even if everything around them hasn't slowed down, that in times where their family has gone quiet and they're not checking on them, or maybe there's moments where they just feel so alone, I pray that they know that you are there with them each and every moment of every day. Please give me wisdom and guidance as I read your word today, Father. Please decrease me and increase you so that they only see the truth of your word. Please help me to navigate if I may misstep. Thank you for the strength to be on here today each and every morning. And thank you for the room. Thank you for bringing them here. In Jesus' mighty name I pray. Amen. All right. So we are in Leviticus 24, and I'd love to give each and every one of you a recap. We were in Leviticus 23 on Thursday. I need to remind you guys, I will not be doing a live tomorrow. Okay? So I'll send that text reminder too. And if any of you are not signed up for text reminders for these Bible studies, that is an option for you if you'd like. I know that TikTok doesn't always remind you, and sometimes it's hard to put it in your calendar. But if you guys want to be on at the start or just have that reminder, that's an option for you guys. At the bottom left of your screen, there's everything you need in there. So before we get into Leviticus 24, Leviticus 23 gave Israel a calendar, okay? Not a calendar in the way that we think of one, like not necessarily work days and weekends, but like a set rhythm of appointed times. Okay, sacred appointments that repeated every single year. And that was whether or not anybody felt like celebrating them or not. There was Passover, there was unleavened bread, there was first fruits, there was the Feast of Weeks, what we now call Pentecost. Okay, the Feast of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, then the Feast of the Tabernacles, 7 appointments, and they were spread across the year, and every single one of them actually required Israel to stop their normal life and remember something specific that God had done for them. Okay, so the reason why it matters, if you've never read this before, these weren't optional. Okay, they weren't feeling based. It was basically whether the harvest was good or bad that year, or whether the people felt close to God or distant from him. Like the appointed times, they still came. Okay, it wasn't based on just what they were navigating that day. So God built this rhythm into their relationship with him that did not depend on how anybody was feeling that week. So what chapter 24 does is it takes that exact same idea and it shrinks it down from a yearly calendar to a weekly one. So instead of feasts that came once a year, we get a lamp that has to be tended to every single night and bread that has to be replaced every single week. And this is inside of inside the tabernacle itself. This is where almost nobody could see it ever happening. Because the only time anybody could go into the tabernacle, the only one that could go in there was the high priest, and he could only go in there once a year. So if chapter 23 taught Israel that showing up on God's schedule mattered even in the big, visible national ways, what chapter 24 teaches them is that it's the same lesson in the smallest, most private, most repetitive way possible. So if this is your first time ever in Leviticus at all, and this is your first time being here today, I'm going to give you a refresher as to why this matters. Okay? And for those of you that are not new, I love just helping you bring it back so you see the through line in all of this. Okay? So I'm going to give you a compressed version of where we've been. And good morning as you guys are all coming in. As you are settling in, can you say good morning to each and every one of us? We want to welcome you into this room. Okay? So chapters 1 through 7, they covered the offerings. This was how Israel brought sacrifices to God and what each one meant. And then chapters 8 through 10, it actually covered the priesthood being set apart. Good morning to you guys. Chapters 8 through 10, that covered the priesthood, okay? And what happened when that was treated very carelessly. Then chapters 11 through 15, it covered what made a person clean or unclean in their daily life. Chapter 16, it gave us that Day of Atonement. That was the one day a year that the high priest could enter the most holy place. And then chapter 17, it closed a section by saying worship happens in God's way, not just whenever people decide. Then in chapters 18 through 20, it covered how holiness shapes relationships and community. And then chapters 21 and 22 covered the standards for priests very specifically. So chapter 23 just gave us the sacred chapter. And now we're in chapter 24. I can't believe we're almost done with Leviticus. Leviticus is 20, how many chapters is Leviticus? 27? Yeah. So we'll finish it this week, and then we'll be in Numbers. I'm really excited. Are you guys ready to be done with Leviticus? I like Leviticus. There's so much in it that I feel like is so important. It's such a wealth of, I mean, the whole Bible is a wealth of information, but it's, a lot of people look at this section and they think, oh, that's just a book of law, like Leviticus is a book of laws that we no longer follow, but there's so much in there. There's so much to actually take into this new, like out of the Old Testament into the New Testament. There's so much information in there. So chapter 24, it takes us back into the tabernacle. It takes us into the smallest, quietest details of what continual devotion actually looks like. Okay, so I'll read through Leviticus verses 1 through 4. And this is God's commands. God commands pure oils for the lampstand and continual burning before him. Okay. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, command the children of Israel that they may bring you pure oil of pressed olives for the light, to make the lamps turn continual. Thought I turned my phone on, do not disturb. Whoops. It like vibrated. I'm like, oh no. I'll just read that again. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, command the children of Israel that they may bring you pure oil of pressed olives for the light, to make the lamps burn continually. Outside the veil of the testimony in the tabernacle of meeting, Aaron shall be in charge of it from evening until morning before the Lord continually. It shall be a statute forever in your generations, and he shall be in charge of the lamps on the pure gold lampstand before the Lord continually. All right, so what Moses is essentially saying is that the Lord spoke to him, telling him the children of Israel, meaning all of the Israelites that are there, they're going to bring you pure oil of pressed olives so that this light can continually burn. This is outside of the veil of the testimony in the tabernacle of meeting, and Aaron, who is the high priest that has been ordained, is going to be in charge of it continually. He's going to be in charge of it from evening until morning. That's his job. That's part of it, right? This is a statute to the Lord forever throughout all of the generations. Okay, so if you've never read Exodus, you might not know this command, you might know this command already. We've already seen it exist almost word for word in Exodus 27, when the tabernacle was first being designed. That matters. It matters because God isn't giving Israel any brand new information here. He's actually reminding them of something that they were already told months earlier. So back when the tabernacle was still just a plan on paper, it was just like in Moses' head. It hadn't, like the Lord had given it to Moses, but it hadn't been erected. That's when it was given. Now the tabernacle is actually built and it's running. He's making sure that this specific detail doesn't get forgotten in the day-to-day operation of it. So in the original text of the Hebrew, in the New King James Version, it translates this word continually as timid. It doesn't just mean often or regular. It actually carries that sense of something that's happening without interruption, without a single night where it's allowed to lapse. This is why that word matters so much here, because that lampstand, it wasn't just it wasn't a decoration. It was the only light source inside of that inner room, and Aaron was responsible for it never going dark. This was every single evening for as long as the tabernacle stood. So before I keep going through this, I just want to make sure that the setting actually makes sense, because this verse, it mentions something that you need to be able to picture correctly. So the tabernacle was a tent structure, and it had 2 rooms inside of it. So for those of you that weren't a part of the earlier studies, first of all, you can go back and check all the replays, because I actually show you what these rooms look like. And depending on what Bible you have, some Bibles actually show what this looks like. But in our studies, I've shown you pictures of what this tabernacle looked like, from the veils to the walls to, sorry. Do you guys, I know this is not Bible study appropriate, and I'm not going to say the whole lyrics, but I laugh because it's like from the windows to the walls. That's what that made me think of. If any of you guys are familiar with that song. Anyway, so from the veils to the walls, and to the and to like the outer court, all of the places, right? This tabernacle was a tent, and it had rooms inside of it. So the very first room was called the holy place. I know it's going to be stuck in my head too. And that's where the lampstand and the bread table stood. Okay. So behind that room was a curtain, and that curtain was called the veil. And behind that veil was this second room. It was a smaller room. It was called the most holy place. So inside the innermost room, it sat the Ark of the Covenant. This is a gold covered box that held the stone tablets of the 10 Commandments, which the scripture calls the testimony. Okay. Betty White comes to mind. That's funny. I miss her. I loved Betty White. She's so sweet. And so they're called the testimony because they testified to the covenant that God made with his people. So only the high priest could ever go behind that veil. And this was only once a year, which was on the Day of Atonement, which we already covered back in chapter 16. So when this verse says that the lamp stood outside of the veil, outside of the veil of the testimony, essentially it's telling you exactly where this lamp was. It was right outside the room that was holding the most sacred object in the entire nation. And it was close enough to God's presence that it had to be tended with the same level of seriousness as anything that was happening behind that curtain. So behind that curtain, if this part wasn't clear, this is where God's presence dwelled. Okay? He was able to dwell with them as they were navigating the wilderness. He had them build this tabernacle so he could be with them. So I want to give you the cultural context that helps this information land a little bit better. So in the ancient world, oil lamps, they needed constant tending to. They weren't something that you just like lit once and then walked away. Wicks had to be trimmed, okay? Oil had to be refilled. And if nobody paid attention, this flame essentially would gutter out on its own within just like a few hours. So this wasn't like just a symbolic gesture that God was asking for. It was actually physical nightly labor, and it had to be done by hand. And it was in this room standing just outside the most sacred space in the entire camp. This is where almost no one could ever witness it happening. So I want you to think about what that would have looked like for Aaron every morning and every evening, okay? This happened whether the day had been eventful or it had been just a typical day, right? Whether the camp was celebrating or whether they were grieving, he had to go back and still tend to it. He had to walk into that space and make sure that lamp was taken care of. Nobody was clapping for him. Nobody was, honestly, I don't think many people were watching. And if he would have skipped a night because he was tired or because there was nothing important going on or seemed to be happening in that week, that room, it would go dark. And the sign of God's continual presence inside that tent would go dark with it. So this connection, I think, is something that a lot of us live out without ever actually putting words to it. I think there's a type of like faithfulness that only shows up when it's convenient, when we feel inspired, or when something dramatic is on the line, right? There's like a different version of that timid version that shows up on the ordinary nights too, that nobody's going to ask about like at any other point in the night. Our business runs on that same kind of faithfulness, I think, more than what people realize, right? We have to send those follow-up emails when nobody sees. We have a system to maintain even when there's a slow month. We have client relationships that you keep tending to even when there's no big win to report that week. That's that timid work, right? It's not glamorous, but it was never supposed to be. That's the thing that keeps that light on, right? You keep going to work every day. You keep making dinner. You keep doing the laundry. Like, people see those. But if you took a day off, would people fully notice? Or would that be like, oh, now I'm just a little bit behind? I want to say that light, it didn't need an audience to matter. It just needed to stay lit. So what's one thing, I guess, like as we kind of navigate this, what's one thing that you do every single day that nobody ever asks you about? What is one thing? One part of your day that is just like, I gotta continually show up. I want to keep this going. And maybe nobody's asking me about it. Is it like the text that you send to a family member to check on them? Is it making sure your husband has coffee in the morning? Like, what is one thing that you're doing every day that nobody asks? Everything? Yeah, everything. Think about that, okay? And I invite you guys to put that in the comments. I'm going to welcome everybody else that's joining in right now. We're in Leviticus 24. We actually just looked at the command for the lampstand oil. It had to be tended to every single night without fail. So if you're new here, I have a ton of resources for each and every one of you. It's at the bottom of your screen. There should be a gold icon. And in it, there should be a lot of different options. I think that it might be at the bottom, but at the bottom of your screen, there should be another little option that says like resources. And I say that because if you click on that one, it will send you a form for you to opt into anything you want, and it'll send it to you all at once versus having to go in and individually select everything, like sign up for everything individually. There's text reminders, there's Bible study replays, there's a free gift, it's a guide. There's a lot of stuff in there. Okay, so I'm going to read through Leviticus chapters 5 through 9. This is the bread of the tabernacle, and these are the 12 loaves of the bread of the presence that was set on the table before the Lord every Sabbath. Okay? Every Sabbath. So, it says, "And you shall take fine flour and bake 12 cakes with it. 2/10 of an ephah shall be in each cake. And you shall set them in 2 rows, 6 and 6, on the pure gold table before the Lord. And you shall put frankincense on each row." And you shall put pure frankincense on each row that may be on the bread for a memorial, an offering made by fire to the Lord. Every Sabbath he shall set it in order before the Lord continually, being taken from the children of Israel by an everlasting covenant. And it shall be for Aaron and his sons, and they shall eat it in a holy place, for it is most holy to him. From the offerings of the Lord made by fire, by a perpetual statute. So, there are 2/10 of an ephah, and that shall be in each cake. And then you're going to set them in 2 rows. There's going to be 6 in the row, and they're going to be on a pure gold table before the Lord. You have to put frankincense on it. There's a lot, right? But 12 loaves. One is for each of the tribes of Israel. Okay? The 12 tribes of Israel. They're going to be set out on a gold table inside the holy place right in front of God. I want you to notice there's a word used here. It says every Sabbath. So if some of you aren't familiar with that word, Sabbath is the 7th day of the week. It's a day that God actually set apart all the way back at creation, and it was as a day of rest. It became fixed into the weekly rhythms of Israel's whole life, and work stopped, and something sacred happened instead. So when this verse actually says that the bread was replaced every single Sabbath, it's actually tying this act to the one day every single week that already belonged to God in a very special way. So this wasn't like a one-time offering. It was a rebuilt, and it was fresh every single week forever. You know, I guess this question comes up a lot. And I would say that the consensus that most people assume that the Sabbath is Saturday. Some of us say Friday into Saturday. Some people consider the Sabbath Sunday. So that one's been debated over just because of the difference of the calendars. But I want to say this. I guess I would love your opinion on this. Do you think that because the Sabbath is an Old Testament law that it no longer applies? Or do you think it's still one that should be relevant throughout all generations? Because what I'm seeing here in the text, and this is what I believe anyway, but what I see in the text is that it's perpetual, right? The word that's used is perpetual, like a perpetual statue. So that means every single week forever. And I think that a lot of times, I think that we've all kind of heard, like, we don't have to follow the Sabbath. I'm going to say I'll leave that up to you for your own personal discernment. I would say that it's still very relevant, not because it's an Old Testament law, but because I think God wrote it in there for something that still applies very much so today. We still need rest. Not just like, oh, I need to relax on the couch, like a rest to where our mind goes still. A rest where our nervous system is just able to relax, to be still and be present with Him. And when you think about how many hours are in the week, taking one intentional day, everything will still be there, right? Everything's still going to be, nothing's going to fall apart if one day a week you take time to just be, to not just be so immersed in the day-to-day grind of everything. I also want you to notice too that this phrase, most holy, it's actually attached to this bread. So Leviticus actually uses tiers of holiness And some of these things were simply holy and they were set apart for God's use. But there's like a smaller category and it's called most holy, right? That was reserved for the closest, most restricted contact with God's presence. So this is actually why Aaron and his sons and the priests, they were allowed to eat this bread and they could only do it inside the holy place. It could never be taken home. It was never shared with the rest of the camp. So the higher the tier of holiness, the fewer hands that were allowed to touch it. So here's the part that connects with what we already saw with the lamp. So this bread, it was already, it also required timid. And that's that same word for continual, uninterrupted presence. So these old loaves, they came down, right? And the priest ate them in the holy place. And new loaves went up in their place. And so it was on schedule, whether that week had been a good week, like a good one for Israel, or a hard one. It was just, you just do this, whether the week was good or bad. So in the original Hebrew, the phrase translated bread of the presence, it literally means bread of the face, okay? Which is interesting, right? But it sat in front of God's face. It represented all 12 of the tribes, 12 tribes of Israel. And they were standing continually before him, being fed by him, being remembered by him. And this was week after week without a single gap. So when I want to cross-reference this amongst other scriptures. In 1 Samuel chapter 21, David and his men are fleeing from Saul. They were hungry and they were desperate. And then they asked the priest, Achimelech, I forget how to say his name. They ask him for bread, okay? And the only bread available is this consecrated bread of the presence. So Achimelech gives it to them. And then later when the religious leaders confront Jesus in Matthew 12 for letting his disciples pick grain on the Sabbath, Jesus points directly back to that story. He's showing that even something this sacred, it existed to serve real human needs. This wasn't just a ritual. It wasn't just something that was ritualistic. Did it mess up my sound? I know that you said sound and I didn't hit my mic. So is it buzzing at all? I hate when I hit my mic. Okay. So I guess, how does this translate to us, right? Why does this actually matter for our actual week? Very little buzzy. Okay. You hear a lot of buzzing? Ugh. Was it doing that before I hit my mic? Of course. It does it a little sometimes just to be annoying. I feel like I'm just at the point where I'm ready to get a new mic. You can hear it too. Okay, it sounds perfect to you? I don't know. As long as you guys are good and it's not overpowering. If it does start to amp up, will you guys let me know? All right, so I want to talk about why this matters for our week. Okay, because this bread, it wasn't valuable just because it stood out. Okay? All 12 loaves were actually identical. They were the same recipe. They were the same size, the same shelf, right? Their value, it wasn't in being different from each other, okay? It was in being there. They were there faithfully every single week. They were representing every tribe before God without exception. So, if any of you have ever felt just like another individual, another woman, right, who had the same offer as you, who was doing the same type of business, who had the same amount of kids, she had made the same income, she got married at the same time, I don't know, whatever. You're comparing yourself to another person, right? If you've ever felt just like another person doing this exact same thing, this passage, this is the passage that actually answers that fear very directly. Okay? God isn't looking for the loaf that stood out. He was looking for the bread that showed up on schedule every week without fail. So here's the deeper question that that actually lives inside that. If you're one of the 12 loaves that look all the same, does that mean that you're forgettable? Right? Does it mean that you're forgettable? Every single week, without exception, all 12 tribes were represented before God's face. So nobody's loaf got left off the table because it looked just like the others. Being consistent wasn't the same thing as being invisible. So I know that there are some of us that go to bed and we're lying there and there's thoughts that are running through every single thing that happened during the day. Most of those things wouldn't make it into like a highlight reel on social media. A lot of us have answered the same emails, right? That we probably answer every day, right? We make the same lunches for our kids. We had the same conversation with them about brush your teeth, right? Get dressed, get ready. Or some of us, we've sat alone in a quiet house doing the same 3 loads of laundry that we do every week. Regardless of what it is, right? Somewhere in the middle of that repetition, sometimes thoughts slip in. Sometimes they're so quiet that we almost miss them. Something like, did today even count towards anything? I think maybe we've had that exact thought when we've been standing at our kitchen sink, or we've been driving home from the same errand run that we do every week. And we're wondering if God's attention works that same way, kind of like that ours does. Only our attention really is only focused on the big loud moments, the stuff that like is an emergency, or we feel like we're in crisis, or we have nothing left to give, right? Here's what I want you to picture instead. So on a completely ordinary Tuesday inside of the tabernacle with nothing remarkable happening anywhere in the camp, this priest was still walking over to that gold table, and he was taking down the last week's bread. Okay. And he was setting fresh bread in its place. That was because the Sabbath, right? And that was simply what happened every single Sabbath, no matter what that week kind of looked like. Nobody organized a ceremony for it. I'm sure the first time it happened, there was probably excitement, but then after it happens time and time again, it just becomes just a normal part of the week. A part that is just nobody stops to pay attention to. It just happened to be on the schedule because God had already decided that this rhythm mattered before anyone else was around to confirm that it mattered. So what that means is that our today, the one that feels like nothing, the one where we just keep doing the same things that we always do, that means that it's being kept in the exact same way. Not because it's remarkable, but because like the simple fact that we keep doing it, it was never dependent on whether it was remarkable in the first place. It matters to him regardless. He doesn't just show up for those big visible moments. I know I tell you guys this, like this isn't new to a lot of you, but I repeat it because how many of you can hear that and then you go back to your regular week and you're doing the same things day in and day out and you're like, oh, you just don't feel him in the same way. Sometimes you need that reminder that he's with you all the time. Everything you're doing, everything you show up to, that consistency matters. So I want to know, are you guys usually the type that you are the one that, are you the checker or the one that's checked on? Okay. So what is that usually for you? You're the checker or the one that's checked on? The one that's checking in on others or the one being checked on? Okay. And while you guys are answering, good morning to each and every one of you as you've come in. We're in Leviticus 24. We're looking at the bread of the presence. It's actually set every single Sabbath. So if any of you need to hop off, there's the replays. All of the resources are available for you. We have the links for our text reminders, all the things. We actually won't be having our prayer call tomorrow or a study tomorrow, just to remind you. I'm going to take a drink, so I'm going to mute myself. Not giving you guys my ASMR, the noises of me drinking. Those are no longer free for you. Okay, so We are in Leviticus chapter 24, and we're going to be through I'll read through, if you drink quietly. I can't. I have to just drink very loudly, Matt. I tried. I thought I was being so quiet, and you guys are like, no, we still hear you. I'm like, ugh, okay. Yeah. I can't. I can't drink quietly. Especially when the mic is like literally right here. You just hear. I like even went all the way over here, you guys could still hear me. It's crazy. All right, so I'm going to read through verses 10 through 12. And this is actually, this is a fight that breaks out in camp, and a man blasphemies the name of the Lord. I'm not going to drink right by it. I told you that's no longer free. You're funny, Leslie. Okay, so he blasphemies the name of the Lord. So I'll read through verses 10 through 12. Okay, now the son of an Israelite woman whose father was an Egyptian went out among the children of Israel, and this Israelite woman's son and the man of Israel fought each other in the camp. And the Israelite woman's son blasphemed the name of the Lord and cursed. And so they brought in Moses. His mother's name was Salomith, the daughter of Tibri, the tribe of Dan. Then they brought him in custody, that the mind of the Lord might be shown to them. Okay, so this is the only narrative like this in the entire book of Leviticus where a real event with real named people are breaking into the middle of a chapter, otherwise made up of instructions, right? Like it kind of sounds like, okay, we have this beautiful setting where there's bread being placed and taken down and it's continual, and then all of a sudden this fight breaks up. This alone, or like that alone tells us something, okay? This wasn't included just to teach a rule. It was included because it actually happened, and God wanted his people to see exactly how holiness worked when it was tested in a real, ugly human moment. So some cultural context behind that, so that it helps this make sense. This man's mother was an Israelite, but his father was an Egyptian, okay? Which means that he had no tribal inheritance through his father's line. The inheritance runs through the Israelites, not the Egyptians, right? All the way through to the lineage of Jesus, it runs through the lineage of the Israelites. It doesn't run through the Egyptians. That's the covenant that God made with Abraham. The Abrahamic covenant goes through the Israelites. So in Israel's camp, every single tribe had an assigned position and allotted land. And that was established back in, it's established in Numbers, chapter 2. So some Bible scholars actually believe that the fight itself may have actually started over exactly this. This was a dispute about where he belonged. And it was because he didn't fully belong to any tribe in the way that any other man did. Even though that's not stated directly in the text, a lot of scholars hold that as the most likely context rather than just fact. But it does help explain why tension would exist between these two men in the first place. So in the original Hebrew, two different words are used there. There's cursed, which means to treat something as like light or small or worthless. And then there's blasphemed, right? It was a much stronger word that meant, in the Hebrew, it actually means to pierce or pronounce distinctly. This is actually one of the only places in the Old Testament that it's used this way. So he didn't just speak carelessly about God. He spoke about the actual name of God directly, deliberately, in anger, in the middle of a public fight. I want you to notice what Moses does, okay? He doesn't make a ruling on his own. He actually puts the man in custody until God's own verdict is revealed, okay? This is worth connecting to another moment later that's found in the Torah. Okay, so in Numbers 15, this is where a man is gathering sticks on the Sabbath, and that exact same thing happens. He's held in custody because the punishment isn't immediately clear. Okay, so there's only two places in the entire Torah where this happens, and both times it shows us that Israel's leaders didn't simply just guess at justice. So when something something fell outside a clear precedent, they waited for God to speak rather than assuming that they already knew what was on his mind. So I think this speaks to something very real in our own lives for some of us. Like, have you ever said something out of anger, like in a moment that you didn't plan for it and it came out faster than you could like catch it? You're like, oops, I didn't mean to say it like that, right? I think most of us have. If I'm being entirely honest, there's been moments where I'm like, I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry. Or I didn't mean it in that way. Have you guys done that? This man, he didn't wake up that morning intending to blaspheme God's name. He got into a fight, and then anger took over. And then something came out of his mouth that he couldn't take back the second that it left him. That's a very human thing to do. And I think that's worth sitting in with honesty rather than distancing ourselves from him as though we'd never do something like that, as though we've never done anything similar under pressure, right? We've all done that. We've all said something in anger that we couldn't take back the second that it left our mouths. There's no shame. Like, I don't want you to feel shame. That's a human response. I mean, yes, we probably shouldn't say those things, but sometimes that's just what happens. So we're in Leviticus 24 for any of you guys coming in. We are in the middle of a real fight that broke out in camp. Okay. So in Leviticus 24, I'll read through verses 13 through 16. It says, "And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Take outside the camp him who has cursed. Then let all who heard him lay their hands on his head, and let all the congregation stone him." I thought it said something else. Yeah. "Let all the congregation stone him. The strangers as well as him who is born in the land. When he blasphemes the name of the Lord, he shall be put to death. Whoever kills any man surely be put to death. Whoever harms an animal," so unalives an animal, "shall make it good, animal for animal." I'll stop there. Okay. So essentially what's happening is this is God's ruling on the blasphemer. This law is applying equally to native and people who are foreigners. So what we're seeing here is that there is a detail about laying hands on his head before stoning. So in the original Hebrew, this gesture, it was used elsewhere in Leviticus. It was when somebody else laid their hands on a sacrificial animal and they were transferring guilt or responsibility onto it. Do you guys remember that? Here, this actually functions differently. It's the witnesses formally taking ownership of their testimony, and they're publicly affirming what they heard. This is before the consequence was carried out. This wasn't a casual like mob justice, right? They weren't just taking it into their own hands just because. It required direct, named accountability from the people who witnessed it. There's also a reason that this it was the entire congregation, not just one appointed executioner. They carried it out together. So if you've never thought about this before, it mattered because it actually kept this from ever being like a personal vengeance. So no single family member, no one angry bystander, none of them got to decide someone's fate and then carry it out alone. The responsibility and the weight of it was shared across the whole community, which meant that this was something that the entire nation did together under God's ruling, not something that one person did out of rage. This is actually, I think this is I don't know if it's just me that feels like this, but this is a really hard thing to hear, right? Like somebody did something unintentionally. Now God is imposing a very harsh judgment on it. And then it's multiple people that are involved in it. It's a God-directed consequence instead of an individual revenge. It's actually one of the things that separates this law from how justice worked in a lot of the ancient world surrounding Israel, like where a powerful individual could often decide someone's own punishment. But this part is, I think, worth like focusing a little bit more on, to pause a little bit more on. The law explicitly says that the stranger and the native born are held to the exact same standard. Okay. In a world where foreigners often had fewer protections than citizens, this was a real departure. God wasn't establishing one rule for his covenant people and then a looser one for everyone else. Whoever spoke against his name, regardless of the nationality, regardless of the background, they all faced the same consequence. This actually it connects back to something that we may not think about often. This is the third commandment that we saw in Exodus chapter 20 in verse 7. It says, "Do not take the Lord's name in vain." I'm sure almost every single one of us have heard that. We've heard that command so many times. I think a lot of times we kind of like have stopped hearing it, or some of us think of it differently than what it's actually intended. But here, in this very real, ugly public moment, we get to see exactly how seriously God took that command. This isn't just an abstract rule. It was about something that mattered enough to require the entire community's direct involvement in the outcome. So what I'm seeing in this scripture, it's a very difficult one. God takes his own name so seriously, not because he's insecure about it, but because his name is the one thing that his people could actually hold on to in a world that didn't fully, this world didn't have him fully revealed yet. They didn't have the whole story of him yet. They didn't have the cross. They didn't have the resurrection, right? What they had was his name, and it was spoken over their sacrifices. It was spoken over their blessings. It was also spoken over their most desperate prayers. So if the name could be treated as ordinary, as something to just throw around carelessly in the middle of a fight, when the one anchor that was holding this entire people together could just start to erode. God wasn't protecting his ego here. He was protecting the only thing that his people had to hold when everything else in their world was still shifting under them. Remember who the Israelites are, right? They were an enslaved nation. Their entire identities were they were broken. God has taken them through this wilderness to help reform who they are, to help them gain a deeper dependence on him, to reveal who he is. So this matters a lot. It goes beyond just someone accidentally saying his name in a fit of rage. God has to show them, I have to earn your trust. I want to know, when somebody actually wrongs you, are you more likely to want them to feel it too? Or do you just want to move on and protect your own peace? What do you guys tend to do? If somebody actually wrongs you, do you want them to feel it? So you could put A, I want them to feel it too. Or do you B, I just want to move on and protect my own peace? You don't have to give the church answer, right? Some of us will probably, I know most of us will probably lean towards B, because that's just the peaceful thing to do. But actually, sometimes I want them to know that you wronged me. Sometimes the human part of me is you hurt me really bad. Sometimes I want you to hurt too. Even though naturally that's not what I actually want. Sometimes it's just a feeling in the moment. I mean, it depends on the situation, but sometimes there are definitely moments where I want them to know. What would be the church answer? I think the church answer is a B, honestly. I mean, neither one is wrong, but I think sometimes that's a more peaceful answer. C. Or both, yeah. I don't know what C is. I would categorize C as both. But or C could be depends on the situation. And if you guys are just coming in, we're in Leviticus 24. We actually just watched God's ruling on the blasphemer come down. Are you just being a rebel, Matt? You're I'm going to go against the grain. I'll just pick C. There's resources available to each and every one of you at the bottom left of your screen. There's a gold icon. No, you're fine. You just keep being you, Matt. So, we are in Leviticus 24. I'm going to go through chapters. I can't believe it's not even 10. Usually I look up at the clock and it's 10:30. I can't believe it feels like we're just breezing through the study. Does it seem like it's going faster today? Or maybe it's just me. Feels like I'm really getting through it. Because we're in 17 through 22, which is basically the bulk of it. Okay, so if you guys are just coming in, that's where we are. It does seem to be going a little bit faster today. So this is going to be the laws of retribution. You remember this thought of an eye for an eye or a life for an eye? I mean, a life for an life. So I'll say that again. Life for a life or an eye for an eye. Okay. One law for a stranger and a native, and they were alike. So this is verses 17 through 24. I'm just waiting for you to say something, Matt. Yes. a life for an eye. An eye for a life. Yeah, that would be a bad deal. Okay, so I'm going to read. I know, but I get it. I literally, any Matt, I think it's like Matt's weaknesses. Because my husband's name is Matt, and he catches it instantly. It's so funny. Like the things that I say are just like the dumbest things too. And we'll just sit and like, I'm like, how did you hear me? And he's like, because I was listening to you. Yep. But in all fairness, though, some of the things I say are really, really dumb. It's just, I think my mind just like glitches. I don't know why it does that. I don't know. I should just write them down for the week and tell you guys, here's what I said this week. That was so silly. Because it just, I could create like I could fill a book with all the things I say. It's ridiculous. Okay, so I'll read through chapter 24, verses 17 through 22. Well, I read 17, but I'll read it again. Whoever kills a man should surely be put to death. Whoever kills an animal shall make it good, animal for animal. And if a man causes disfigurement of his neighbor as he is done, so shall it be done to him. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, as he has caused disfigurement of a man, so shall it be done to him. And whomever kills an animal shall restore it, but whomever unalives a man shall be put to death. You shall have the same law for the stranger and for one from your own country, for I am the Lord your God. So, in this section, essentially what's happening is how many of you are familiar with that saying, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, right? I'm sure most of us have heard it, even if we learned it way before faith. I think a lot of times people just throw that out there like an eye for an eye. It's quoted very often. A lot of times I think it's described as it's described as something brutal, like unchecked revenge, right? It's actually the opposite of what this law was doing. And I've told you guys this before. So if some of you were on earlier Bible studies, you know this, but I'm going to just, obviously, since we're studying it, you'll have to use that more often now, Matt. So in the surrounding world, in the ancient world that was surrounding Israel, revenge for an injury, it often had no limit at all. So a stolen animal could get you and your whole family killed. And an insult, it could get your hand cut off. This law, I'm going to put the name of the law. I don't know what I just did just now. I clicked on something. I'm going to put the name of this law in the text because I don't really want to mess it up. But this is the name of the law. No, you don't have to be sorry, Matt. You keep going. This is the name of the law, okay? This had a hard ceiling on retaliation. So whatever was done to you was the absolute maximum that could ever be done, never more. You can't say, okay, well, you like smacked me, so I'm going to stab you. Like you couldn't do more. It's essentially like, if you smacked me, I'm going to smack you. Right? That's essentially what this is kind of saying. It's not a license for revenge. There's a limit to it. This is why it matters so much in the context, okay? So if you've ever genuinely been wronged by somebody, it could be by a client, it could be by a former employee, it could be somebody in your life, right, who hurt you, but they never faced real consequences for it. I think some part of us has maybe wanted to make them pay far beyond what they actually did to you. You don't have to say that out loud. But I think for some of us, it's that real idea that like, oh my gosh, you hurt me. Sometimes I want to hurt you more, right? I want you to feel, I want to make you feel worse than what you made me feel. This law says that God cared about the justice, but he also capped it. Justice wasn't supposed to be, it wasn't supposed to spiral. It was supposed to match and then just stop there. This actually connects back to Exodus 21, verses 23 through 25, as well as Deuteronomy chapter 19, verses 16 through 21. This is where the same principle appears again. It's actually showing that this wasn't a one-time ruling. It had a very consistent standard throughout Israel's history, and it connected forward centuries later, all the way to Matthew chapter 5, verses 38 and 42. This is where Jesus takes this exact law and he goes further. He's teaching his followers not to retaliate at all, to turn the other cheek, right? Jesus wasn't overturning the law and its fairness. He was inviting his followers into something that the law never required. It was mercy that goes beyond even a fair limit. I want you to notice again at the very end of this section, this same phrase repeats. It's one law for the stranger, and then one from your own country, right? This wasn't an accident that it shows up twice in the chapter. God is making sure nobody in this community, whether they were born into it or joined it from the outside, could be treated as though the rules were bent differently for them. I'm not going to be doing it this week, Sandra, but that is a good question. I think that there's a specific name that's sitting in your head. Okay? I think for some of us that have wronged us, right? It could be a client that never paid an invoice and they just disappeared. It could be a former employee and they said something about you that wasn't true. It could be a friend who pulled away without ever explaining why, right? And it left you replaying that conversation that you last had for weeks. Sometimes you probably still replay it, trying to figure out what happened. Whatever that situation is, I think we all have at least somebody, right? Sometimes a thought that creeps in that sounds spiritual, something that sounds like I'm just supposed to forgive this and to move on. So if I'm waiting, it might mean, like if I'm waiting to make it right, or waiting for them to make it right with me, there must be something wrong. Here's what I want you to actually see. We're in Leviticus chapter 24. Oh, I thought you meant where I'm at in the study. I live in Nigeria, and I'm a Nigerian princess. Can you please send me money? I'm going to just start doing that to you guys that do that. Okay, so God in this exact chapter, he actually wrote a law that put an actual number on what was fair. No, I'm not talking to you, Anita. I'm talking to the ones that ask if I'm single or married. Okay. He put an actual number on what was fair. He didn't want to give them more injury. It was this fracture, it answered with a fracture. It was never with someone's whole family being destroyed over it, right? That's not God telling you that the hurt didn't matter. That's God building a real ceiling into how far wrong could be answered. Okay. He knew that if we would have left it alone, a person's hurt it's always going to want to spiral, right? Past what's fair. Have you guys ever had that? Somebody's hurt you and just, that's just part of our human nature sometimes. Maybe some of you are really good and you just don't. I've had that this year where somebody did something to our family that was so undeserved. And there were so many times that I thought, oh, I wish that, like not harm upon them, not like, oh, I wish something bad would happen to you in that way. It was just like, ugh, I wish you could experience what you're putting us through type of thing. So what this tells me, if you've ever been sitting with something that never was made right, you're not wrong for noticing that the account is still not settled, okay? If you've already if you've already chosen mercy instead, and you've chosen to let that invoice go unpaid, right? Even though you would rather pursue it, like pursue what you were legally owed, or you've chosen to stop replaying that friend's silence and just releasing it, that wasn't you pretending that it didn't hurt you. That was you doing something that the law never even required of you. That was the exact thing that Jesus stood up centuries later and taught on purpose. He capped what you were owed. You gave even more than that, right? So, I'll read verse 23 to end out this part of the chapter. It says, "Then Moses spoke to the children of Israel, and they took outside the camp him who had cursed and stoned him with stones. So the children of Israel did as the Lord commanded Moses." Okay. So what we're seeing here is that Israel carries out what the Lord commanded. This is a hard verse to sit with. I'm not going to rush past that, okay? A real person, they died because of what he said, right? There were consequences to what this man said. Scripture doesn't soften that, and I don't think we should either. But I want you to notice that final line. They did as the Lord commanded. Not as Moses decided on his own, not as the crowd's anger decided, but as the Lord commanded. Even in the hardest moment in this entire chapter, that standard being followed wasn't human anger. It was God's own ruling. It was delivered very directly, and it applied exactly as he said, no more and no less. Okay? It was applied very directly. I want to say this. I think it's really hard sometimes for us to understand the depth of what God is doing in certain situations. Why sometimes it feels like we are being judged harsher than other people. Why sometimes people who could be really awful people get to walk away and it seems like their life is great and we're good and our life is hard. And like why that person got to say this thing and I said it and whatever the case is, right? You know how like you do that with your children? Like some of us, our kids may do something wrong and we'll punish one of them a little bit harder than the other, not because we're trying to just be mean, but there's things that we see that they don't see. That if we don't stop the behavior or stop certain things, it's going to cause something else to kind of trickle in, right? God sees what we don't. He is slow to anger. He is patient. His love is abounding, right? It doesn't waver. So how can we sit and see that, see who he is, and then see a moment like this and say, you know, these are the things that people tend to say like, oh, this is God. And if your God is so XYZ, right? Why is he enforcing, why would he allow for slavery? Why would he allow for this and this and this and this? It sounds like a direct contradiction to his nature, but it isn't. It isn't. There are things that God sees that we don't. There are things that he has to take us through. And it may seem harsh in our limited capacity to understand the ways that God works in. But because he is loving, he is righteous, right? He is sovereign. There are things that he has to do because he loves us, right? So this is one of those things when I explain to you on the surface, it may seem very harsh. Why would you stone a man? He knows that if he lets this go and just be and sweep it under the rug, it's going to cause a trickle effect. It's like he's been working and working and working with the identities of these Israelites. It's going to make the rest of them question his nature. It's going to go against a lot of what they know. And so he sees something that they don't. They don't know that. They don't know what he's working underneath the surface. Do I believe that he wanted to do that? No. I think he probably had every desire for this person never to say those things, but they did. And that was a choice they made out of anger. Was it the right choice? No. Would they probably have chosen it again? Probably not. But I also do believe God sees things into the future. He knows what's going to happen. He knows what could happen when things go unchecked. There's just so many things that he knows that when we begin to question things like that, it's like I'm asking based on my limited understanding. It's not a question of who he is. I'm asking because I don't understand. And there's things that I think that sometimes God just doesn't reveal in the fullness because I still won't ever understand. Right? Like in Job, where he says, my ways are not your ways. And you can't even begin to understand the workings of all the things that I have going on, right? That's what I tend to think of is like, he sees what I don't. Can you guys put that in the chat? I just want to declare that. He sees what I don't. So in these moments where it feels like his judgment is harsh, where it feels like I don't understand what you're doing, God, he sees what I don't. That to me is our declaration for today. I know that I try to do these each and every day to have something small. He sees what I don't. So this was a little bit of a shorter chapter. I actually didn't want to combine it with chapter 25 because chapter 25 really needs its own depth, its own separate understanding. And so I could have made this, like one of our typical lives, but this one's just a little bit shorter today. Yep, he is infinite and we are finite. So remember at the very start how I asked you guys what you were looking forward to this week? Did you guys some of you, I feel like you answered that, but I'm curious, what are you guys looking forward to this week? I will be going live on Wednesday, yes. Tuesday is the only day where I don't plan to go live. And I usually let you guys know as ahead of time as I can. I used up all my PTO, you guys. I'm just kidding. That is your birthday on Wednesday, Gina? Or is it today? Oh, you're looking forward to your birthday. What day is your birthday? I forgot that I even asked you guys a question. From Monday to end, super busy with deadlines today. Yeah. You plan to have a great birthday and a great start to the school year. When does the school year start for you guys? Ours starts, your birthday's on Sunday? I will do my best to remember. Your birthday's tomorrow? Oh, okay, I will try to remember both of those. Yep, ours starts on the 12th as well. Your son will be home. You haven't seen him in 2 years. Oh my goodness. That's something to definitely be excited for. That's crazy that yours starts on the 12th as well. And we're not even in the same location. Oh, you did? I was like, okay. I was wondering. Okay. So I asked you guys at the very beginning what you were looking forward to, which is what you guys are answering. But there's something that I want you to walk away with, okay? I also asked whether you guys are usually the ones being checked in on or being the one checking on others. What is that for you? Are you usually the one checking in on others or being checked on? Okay. Here's what I want you to walk away with. Whether you're the one who checks on everybody else or the one who quietly wonders if anybody's checking on you, this chapter actually just showed you a God who kept an appointment with his people every single week. This was whether that week was remarkable or completely uneventful, okay? You were never waiting on a crisis to be noticed. God was already keeping that appointment. He's already noticing all the things that you're doing. Okay? So, I'm going to end this study in prayer. I'm going to stay on for just a little bit longer because normally we're on for about 2 hours. This was a shorter one today. Since I didn't get time with you on Friday, I wanted to show you a couple fun things I have going on the back end. And so I'll show you guys that here in just a second. But we're going to pray. So can you guys put your prayer requests in the chat? And if you join this study a little bit later, At the bottom left of your screen, there's a bunch of resources for you. There's the replays for this study. There are text reminders. There is, we were in Leviticus 24 today. There's a guide for you, gifts, all the things, okay? It's available for you. There's a little drop down that says resources. Let's see. I love these coming in. Okay, we're going to go ahead and pray this out. Heavenly Father, I thank you for today. Thank you for showing us that you are a God that cares about every element of our day, that the ordinary things that we go through day in and day out, they matter just as much to you. Thank you for being a God who sees when we need checked on, that you are patient with us, that you understand the times where we are struggling. And I pray, Father, that we are able to just surrender them at your feet, the things that we are navigating that feel just too much for us to hold on to. Your word says that your yoke is easy and your burden is light. I thank you for all that you do for us, Father. I pray that we have eyes to see the things that you are helping us navigate through. Please be with us as you always are, just in the exciting moments just as much as the difficult ones. Thank you for your word today. Pray that we find comfort in the fact that you see things that we don't, that you are a God that goes before us and you have it all taken care of. In Jesus' mighty name I pray. Amen. All right. So on Wednesday, we're going to be in Leviticus 25. Okay. I feel like I'm like, where am I going? It feels like a quick one today. I am going to show you, can I show you guys something that I'm working on right now? I need to take a screenshot of, actually, how do I do this? I think there's a way to share my actual screen. Let me see if I can do that. Is it a window capture? Give me 1 second, you guys. I think actually I'll have to pull it up. Let me log in. Oops, put that in the wrong spot. Trying to sign into my website. Did I do the wrong one? Okay, good. All right. Let me see. Can you guys see this? Wait, not yet. Where is it at? I've never done this before, so we'll see if this even cooperates. Let's see. I see Google Chrome, but I don't see the little... You can see something? What can you see? Because it's not... I still see myself. Yes, on YouTube. No, you can't see it. It's like not letting me drag it. It's being kind of difficult. Now can you see it? Why are you being so difficult? Fit to screen. No. You guys are like, what is she doing? This is so hard to navigate. Nope. Okay. Wait. Did it do something just now? Darn it. I don't know why it's not letting me. Let me take a screenshot of it really quick. Where is it at? Oh, okay. Let me take a screenshot and then you guys can see. This just popped up on your screen. What's happening? Oh, I'm just showing you guys something cool that I'm building out. If you want any of the replays for the Bible study, you guys can get them too. But I'm just taking a screenshot since it's not working. Because I was going to navigate my website so I could show you, because it's not live yet. But, all right. I think this is it. No, that's the wrong thing. That is not it. Guys, this is hard. It's hard because I can barely see. And I might just end up having to send it to you. Is it this thing? No. Why didn't it screenshot it? It's kind of being ridiculous right now. Oh, there it is. I found it. Okay. So, can you guys see this now? Can you see that? Okay. So what this is on my website, what I'm doing for you guys to be able to do the replays. Essentially what it is it's going to house each and every one of these replays all the way that I have available. And so rather than you guys having to go into YouTube and try to find it, because sometimes they're literally all over the place, there's going to be a new section for you guys. And this is what I've been working on. I haven't fully finished Genesis. So I'm hoping, I'm trying to pump it out. But anyway, you're either going to be able to watch it in the little video option right there, or there's another little drop down option. And then it collapses each and every one of them. So you could close it and you can just pull them up, or you see these little things at the top where it says Genesis 6 through 8, Genesis 9 through 12, like all of those things, you just select it and it takes you through that grouping. So that's what I've been trying to work on. I got a little bit of it done on Friday. You would think that, I don't know which option this is. You would think I would have had a lot of time, but I didn't really get that much more time back on Friday. I was navigating a couple things that came up, but there's that. And then there's another section that's going to be on there that, let me show you guys this. I'll take a screenshot of this one really quick. There's something new coming for each and every one of you next week. Let's see. Let me take a screenshot of that one too. So it'll just be like a little drop down on my website. Sorry, there's some little things in the corners that it captured. On the bottom left of your screen, Rhonda, there is a gold icon and it should have a white arrow. And in that white arrow, it should have all of the resources for you. It will take you to a sign in, and I send you the replays for the Bible studies every single day. But eventually what will happen is, I know that a lot of times you guys wait for the replays and you don't have to do that. If you'll type in EdenandEmpire.com, and what you'll see is on the top, there'll be a Bible study section, and then you'll click on it and it'll say watch all the replays, and you guys can just go there and it'll bring you up to all the replays. But next week, we are starting our members only Bible study. And so you guys will be able to just go here and access all of the replays for those new Bible studies that we're going to be doing. So I have that I have the form created for it for you guys to be able to opt into this members only study. This members only study is, what did I set the price point at? Oh, okay. So these ones, what these members only studies are for, we do these Bible studies each and every day, Monday through Friday. Those will always remain free. Okay. But these ones are a separate teaching, and they go super in depth into common themes that we see in scripture. They're going to be once a month. And so they're about an hour long. They're going to be on Zoom in the evenings. And so they'll be on the first Thursday, I think is what I said, first Thursday of every month for about an hour-ish. It'd probably be 60 to 70 minutes. but a good 45 minutes of us diving into current themes of scripture. I have them written down and I can't remember where I placed them. So I'll have all of those themes coming up for you guys, but they're relevant to the things that we're just now studying, but they go even deeper into it. And so I think for the first, like as my thank you to you guys being like the first ones in it, I think it's like 17 is what I had, like 17 a month for it. And these are just because it's so much time and energy to put into these separate studies to be able to find the themes and dive deeper into it. And so I'll be sending out like an email for you guys that want to opt into that new part of it. It's just another offering we have. So I will send you guys details for that, but that's kind of what I have coming down this week. I should be able to open up the Bible studies section this week, but we'll see. So I just want to kind of let you guys know what I have going on since I ended the study a little bit early today. I'm going to go work on those things. I will not be live tomorrow. I will send you guys that text reminder. That also means that we won't have our prayer call tomorrow. We'll resume that on Tuesday. And it's because I'm taking some time to get some self-care, finally get my hair. I'm going to get it trimmed a little bit. What do you guys think I should do? I always go so back and forth. Sometimes I have it in like a short bob. And every time I get it cut in a short bob, I'm always like, ooh, it's too short. I kind of like this length here because I can still pull it up in like a messy bun and like still get it kind of out of the way. But there are times where like color it green. No, okay, I will. I think I'll probably just do a trim. I really like it when my hair just kind of sits right here on my shoulders. I guess you'll have to see. You'll have to see what I come back with. Yeah, my husband won't let me grow my hair out again. He's like, no, you're only ever allowed to have your hair like this. This is like the longest you can have it anymore. He really likes this length on me. So, and it's so easy. It really is so simple. But I'm wanting it lighter. Like I really want my highlights to be kind of like blonde almost. So you guys will just have to wait. I bet you won't even notice. That's what tends to happen when I go get my hair done. Nobody notices. Like one time I cut my hair, like I trimmed it and I dyed it and my husband didn't notice. And nobody at work said anything. And I'm like, how? So I wouldn't be surprised if you like don't notice. But that's what I think I want to do. So that's why I'm taking off tomorrow. I took off Friday just because I wanted a day to get caught up on some of these things that I have working in the background for all of you. So you will notice. I think you'll notice only because I've told you. It won't look drastic, I promise. But yeah, I'm excited to see you guys back on Wednesday. The replay will be up for tomorrow. And that's it. If any of you want to continue chatting with us, we have the Discord chat as well. Sorry, I'm not super active in it on the weekends. So my website is just edenandempire.com. But the Bible study isn't available, like that Bible study section isn't available to you guys quite yet. It's hidden, so you won't be able to see it yet till it's finished. Sorry. So I got to get it up to date. Right now I'm only through Genesis, so it shouldn't be too lengthy. If you guys want the Discord chat, DM me the word Discord and I will send it to you. I also wanted to take a second. I know I didn't do this on Thursday, but we hit 30,000. We're over 30,000 followers. And I just wanted to thank all of you. Thank you guys for that. Thank you for sharing the lives. Thank you for referring your family members, your friends. It means a lot when you guys come to me. Some of you refer your clients. Like, that's amazing. I don't even know. I don't know what to say to that. I think I will celebrate those. Well, scripture calls us to do that, right? To celebrate those big wins and the little wins. That's a big deal to me. Thank you guys for doing that. It means a lot. So I just wanted to take time to honor that and the gifts and the prayers, the follows, the likes, all the things. I know I don't really say it throughout the live, but it does mean a lot. So I will see you guys on Wednesday, and you guys all have a beautiful Monday.